Imagine standing in the cold darkness of Ice Age Europe 40,000 years ago. You look across the valley and you see another group, shorter, stockier, with heavy brows and powerful arms. They are Neanderthals. And then you see something horrifying, not cooperation, not peace, but violence, possibly even cannibalism. Yes, there is growing evidence that Homo sapiens, our own species, may have hunted and cannibalized Neanderthals. Body Section 1. The clash of species. Neanderthals were not our ancestors, but our cousins. They evolved in Europe and Asia long before we arrived, surviving harsh climates with brains as big as ours, sometimes even bigger. But around 45,000 years ago, we the modern humans bred into their lands, and within a few thousand years the Neanderthals were gone. So what happened? Was it climate change, disease, or were we, Homo sapiens, directly responsible? Body Section 2. Evidence of violence. Archaeological sites in France, Belgium, and Spain reveal shocking evidence. Neanderthal bones showing cut marks, marrow extraction, and skulls cracked open as if for brain removal. In some caves, their remains are found alongside animal bones, processed in the same way. These were not burial rituals. These were butchering marks. Is it possible that our ancestors saw Neanderthals not as equals, but as prey? Body Section 3. Why would we do this? Why would humans hunt Neanderthals? Some argue it was out of desperation during times of scarcity. Others believe it was a brutal tactic to eliminate competition. But maybe it wasn't just survival. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was the instinct to destroy what we don't understand. Even today, human history is marked by the suppression, or extermination, of the other. This story, buried in bones and DNA, might be the first chapter in that long, dark pattern. Body Section 4. Echoes in our DNA, and yet, Neanderthals are not entirely gone. Their DNA lives on in us. Today, most people of European or Asian descent carry between 1 to 4% Neanderthal DNA. We didn't just kill them. We bred with them, we absorbed them, a haunting reminder that even as we fought them, we became them. Closing reflection. So what does this story tell us? It tells us that history is not always heroic, that our ancestors were not just toolmakers, artists, and explorers, but also hunters, and possibly cannibals, of their own kind. It forces us to face the uncomfortable truth that the line between human and monster is thinner than we'd like to admit. But in confronting this, we also gain something: wisdom, a deeper understanding of who we are, where we came from, and what we are capable of, both the light and the dark. Modern humans, known as Homo sapiens *, may have done more than simply coexist with their close evolutionary cousins, the Neanderthals. Emerging evidence suggests that early humans may have actively hunted and cannibalized Neanderthals during periods of overlap in Ice Age Europe and Western Asia. This theory challenges older narratives that emphasized peaceful contact or passive competition, while interbreeding between the two species is well documented through genetic traces found in modern humans. Archaeological findings point toward a far more violent interaction. Cut marks on Neanderthal bones, consistent with those found on butchered animal remains, suggest systematic skinning, defleshing, and even marrow extraction. Some of these remains show signs of being broken open to access nutrient-rich brain tissue, behavior strikingly similar to how humans process prey animals. These discoveries have been made in several locations, including Moulins, Guernsey in France, and El Sidrón in Spain, where Neanderthal bones were found alongside those of animals, with identical processing marks. The motive behind such gruesome behavior is still debated. Some researchers propose that cannibalism occurred during times of food scarcity, such as harsh winters, when survival instincts may have overridden any social or ethical boundaries. Others believe it could have been a strategic move, eliminating a competing species by consuming them, thereby asserting dominance and removing rivals from scarce ecological niches. Unlike scavenging behavior, the patterns of dismemberment and skull fracturing suggest intentional and repeated acts. The level of anatomical knowledge demonstrated, avoiding bone damage while accessing muscle and fat, hints that early humans may have done this not just out of desperation, but as a learned practice. The possibility that Homo sapiens viewed Neanderthals as both enemies and resources paints a disturbing, primal portrait of our shared past. Archaeological discoveries across Europe have uncovered Neanderthal skeletal remains bearing unmistakable signs of violent processing. These bones are not randomly broken or weathered by natural forces. Instead, they show clear, deliberate cut marks, thin, precise incisions made by stone tools. These marks often appear at anatomical points where muscles attach to bones, indicating efforts to strip meat, similar to butchering techniques used on animals. In several notable sites, such as the Moulin Gercy cave in France and the El Sidrón cave in Spain, Neanderthal bones were found intermixed with the remains of hunted animals like deer or bison. Both human and animal bones displayed identical patterns of processing, dismemberment, defleshing, marrow extraction, and even skull fracturing. This is not consistent with respectful burial or ritual practices. The bone modification patterns, especially the crushing of long bones to access marrow, mirror subsistence strategies used by early humans for nutritional purposes. At El Sidrón, the skeletal remains of at least 12 Neanderthals were discovered with signs of post-mortem manipulation. Their bones had been cracked open and scraped clean in a way that suggests deliberate cannibalism, possibly by other Neanderthals or by modern humans. Some bones even show percussion pits and impact notches, created when stones were used to break them apart. The consistency and frequency of these patterns across multiple Neanderthal sites, spanning thousands of years in various regions, reduce the likelihood that they were isolated acts of desperation. Rather, they point to repeated and methodical processing, implying a deeper behavioral pattern. The presence of fire. Scorched bones further suggests roasting, not random scavenging. This body of evidence has led many researchers to conclude that Neanderthals were not just dying out through natural causes. They were being butchered like prey. The reasons behind early human cannibalism of Neanderthals remain a subject of deep debate, with multiple theories emerging from both archaeological data and evolutionary psychology. One widely accepted explanation points to periods of extreme environmental stress, such as glacial winters or prolonged droughts, when food sources became dangerously scarce. In such times, cannibalism may have emerged as a brutal but effective survival strategy. Nutrient-dense tissues like bone marrow and brain matter could provide vital calories, especially during lean seasons when animal prey was difficult to find. Another theory, however, shifts the focus from necessity to strategy. As Homo sapiens expanded into Europe and Asia, they encountered Neanderthals who were already well adapted to those environments. With similar diets, hunting patterns, and territorial ranges, the two species would have been direct competitors for limited resources. In this light, cannibalism may have served not just to feed, but to dominate, to eliminate the competition while extracting energy from them in the process. This interpretation aligns with observed behaviors in some modern hunter-gatherer societies, where ritual cannibalism of enemies is linked not just to sustenance, but to power and control. Fear and xenophobia may have also played significant roles. Seeing another intelligent, tool-using, socially organized species might have provoked alarm rather than empathy. From an evolutionary perspective, early humans may have viewed Neanderthals as both threatening and unfamiliar. Consuming them could have served to symbolically and physically erase that threat. In certain cases, this behavior may have evolved into culturally transmitted practices, passed down through generations not as acts of desperation, but as part of a learned response to otherness. The efficiency and consistency with which Neanderthal remains were processed suggest that, whether for survival, dominance, or fear, these acts were calculated rather than chaotic. Despite the disappearance of Neanderthals from the fossil record around 40,000 years ago, they are not entirely extinct. Their legacy survives within the very DNA of modern humans. Advances in genetic research have revealed that non-African populations today carry between 1 to 4% Neanderthal DNA, a result of interbreeding events that occurred when Homo sapiens migrated out of Africa and encountered Neanderthals in Europe and Asia. This discovery, once controversial, has now been confirmed by multiple genome sequencing projects and marks one of the most significant revelations in human evolutionary history. The interbreeding between Neanderthals and modern humans was not a one-time event, but occurred over thousands of years, leaving behind genetic markers that influence traits even today. Some of these inherited genes are associated with aspects of our immune system, such as increased resistance to certain pathogens. Others have been linked to characteristics like skin pigmentation, hair texture, fat metabolism, and even susceptibility to diseases like diabetes and depression. These genetic remnants show that the interaction between the two species was not limited to violence or competition. It also included intimate and complex relationships. This genetic mixing blurs the once clear boundaries between Homo sapiens and Neanderthals. It suggests that the two groups were not entirely separate biological entities, but capable of producing viable, fertile offspring. The exchange of genes indicates periods of peaceful coexistence, cooperation, and shared living spaces, even if those times were punctuated by conflict. The presence of Neanderthal DNA in modern populations is not uniform. Certain groups carry more than others, depending on ancient migration patterns and contact zones. This means that traces of Neanderthal identity still shape the biology and diversity of humanity today, challenging traditional ideas about what it means to be fully human and revealing a complex mosaic of shared ancestry. The story of early human interaction with Neanderthals reveals not only a tale of evolutionary competition, but a reflection of the dual nature of humanity itself. While modern Homo sapiens are often celebrated for innovation, creativity, and social bonding, the archaeological record also uncovers a darker side, one marked by violence, exploitation, and perhaps cannibalism. The potential hunting and consumption of Neanderthals by early humans forces a confrontation with uncomfortable truths about the behaviors embedded in our evolutionary past. These were not simple acts of survival alone. They may have involved calculated decisions to harm those who were different, who posed a threat, or who were seen as less deserving of empathy. This complexity speaks to a deeper human pattern. Throughout history, the tendency to dehumanize the other has reappeared in many forms: colonization, enslavement, genocide, suggesting that this behavior is not an aberration but a recurring theme in human society. The acts committed tens of thousands of years ago may have been among the first examples of such tribalism, where fear of difference led to extreme and violent measures. In Neanderthals, early humans may have recognized something eerily similar yet alien, a mirror image twisted just enough to provoke hostility instead of kinship. Even the coexistence and interbreeding with Neanderthals add layers to this narrative, showing that human nature is not easily divided into good and evil. Our ancestors were capable of compassion and connection, but also of destruction and dominance. This duality is written into our bones, our myths, and our memories. The archaeological traces left behind, cut marks on bones, burned remains, fragments of shared DNA are not just scientific data. They are pieces of a story that still resonates. They remind us that our past was shaped by both the light of cooperation and the shadow of brutality.